Welcome to Carter's Retro Reviews. Today we'll be playing and reviewing D-Xhird or D-Xhird or whatever you want to call it. Okay, either way, it's a retarded name. Now, one thing that needs to be pointed out is that it has sort of like a shine to the front of the booklet, which, oh, there we go. Looks very, very nice. See, it shines there. Very nice. It's a very nice touch. It lulls you into a false sense of, hey, this is going to be a good game. But anyway, most people don't know this, but if you want to play this game, the best way to enjoy it is to go out, get yourself a lobotomy, make sure they take a nice big chunk of the brain out. Like, just, you know, just make sure that they really just hack at it. Just fucking get rid of a lot of brain, and then when you come back from the lobotomy, you play this game, and that is how you enjoy it. You're welcome. D-Xhird is the most retarded name for a game I've ever heard in quite a while. It's actually pronounced D-Xhird. I did a bit of research and found at no point throughout the English language was X a substitute for T. The only thing close I could find was that X was the sound of CH in Greek, and that X can be used in Christmas. It's a weapon-based 3D fighter for the Saturn, released in 1997 exclusively in the Japan region. In order to review this game properly, you have to understand that the company that made this is Takara. Well, okay, that's not true. They published the game. Nextech developed the game. Know who they are? Me neither. I mean, I should know, as they've developed a few games for the Time Crisis series and one or two titles for the Resident Evil series on top of a few titles for the Toshington series. I've already reviewed Toshington URA on the Saturn and I don't have particularly high hopes. When I did this review originally, I may have been slightly harsh on it, saying the game was fucktatious ass fucks if I remember correctly. Why didn't anyone say anything about that? I also said the game was 6 shades of shit. What I didn't mention is, knowing it was an obscure title, I just wanted to gauge how bad it was going to be. If I didn't know about it before going in, that usually says something. It's either not good enough to be mentioned anywhere in a top 20 or 50 list, but at the same time avoids infamy for being total shit like we have with Shaq Fu. Now, I can't be totally dismissive because Takara have done some good shit like Fatal Fury Special and Cyberspin for the SNES, if that counts for anything. Plus, Ballerina Toshington for the PlayStation was, for the most part, a pretty good 3D fighter. So, when a third party does a 3D fighter on a console which is infamous for not being very good at exactly that, then you have to wonder why they bothered doing it in the first place. Was PlayStation getting some glorious deal for the second game that forced Takara to make a different game as a sequel? The whole thing is a little fucking bewildering. Maybe it wasn't Sega that wanted this game, but some deal with Takara to make the game for the console if they wanted any Toshington games, in which case, they got butt-fucked right across the board. Menu presentation is bland and dry, and yes, it's functional, but so far I couldn't possibly give less of a shit about this game at this point. Character selection is more or less the same, although so far it does stick with a theme, which is a plus. Shame that theme is bland, boring shit. In-game presentation lacks any particular style. It's the Gary Oldman of video game presentation. It's such a blank canvas, although I shouldn't be making comparisons because one is bad quality in a video game and the other is an excellent underrated actor. Graphics for the game are not bad. It's kind of how I wanted Toshington to be on the Saturn. It's not perfect as the arenas look rough. The backgrounds are pretty good and the character detail is alright. The shape of the characters don't look alright at various points when they hit each other. Something doesn't look right there. Texturing is also acceptable. It's not outstanding, but it's pretty good. I really don't want to sound like I'm overselling anything here because graphically, it's much better than Takara puts out for the Saturn, but when you compare it to other 3D fighters for the console, it does seem second best to a majority. The animation is really poor. I'm not sure whether this is because of a poor frame rate or whether every character was only given 6 frames to work with in the first place, but it really makes the whole game feel off and really brings every other positive aspect about the graphics right down. The music is something I would expect to see out of a Street Fighter if Street Fighter didn't have such a memorable, seminal soundtrack. What we're left here instead is just some musical filler that has no real bearing on the game itself in a positive way. It's there, but that's the extent of it. Sound effects are okay. The sounds the characters make when they die is ridiculous. Gameplay is dull, uninteresting, and some other descriptive word for more or less the same thing as the two other words I would use for gameplay. The fact that one of the characters was called Boy gives you some barometer for the kind of originality we're dealing with here. I was going to say by no means is this a bad game, but I think it's fair to say that this game teeters around bad, with the best of it really aiming for just being average. One thing that breaks gameplay is the way that characters react. When they get stabbed, there is zero flow to it, and it's almost like the developers developed it with the weapons separate to the rest of the game, then copied and pasted that part into the game so it looks very disjointed and really pulls you out of the experience. The level of difficulty is wildly out of control. Level 1, easy. Level 2, bullshit hard. Level 3, easier than level 2, but harder than level 1. The way the game handles and feels would be best described as a step up from your older brother handing you a controller that's not plugged in and telling you you can play along. That might be slightly too brutal, but it's not a game that really pulls you in at any point. Replay value is 2-player. You have 10 characters to play through, which includes Sanjuro, who is hard as balls to beat, and everyone else, both pre and post Sanjuro, was a lot easier. Would I recommend this game? No. It's not good enough to make a name of itself, and it shall remain in obscurity forever.